Glad to have you back here on Engendered on KAFTAN television. And I really don't know why Victoria was laughing.
Well, I don't want to say. Maybe when our guest joins us, then I would say, so that I don't spoil the fun already.
Okay, so we're happy to be here again once again this evening. And like Engendered, we discuss all issues revolving around the female gender. And most of the time we discuss issues that involves the home too. It's not just about the female gender, issues that affect the society, things that we should address. And at this point in time, we're going to be playing a report on our topic of discussion today, which we'll review just after the report. We'll be right back.
Languages are the most powerful instruments of preserving and developing our tangible and intangible heritage. In relation to this, International Mother Language Day is a worldwide annual observance held on the 21st of February to promote awareness of linguistics and cultural diversity and to promote multilingualism. Nigeria is a big territory with 36 states and over 550 spoken languages, with about 8 of these languages already in extinction. Now, KAFTAN TV joins different cultures to celebrate the beauty of multilingualism.
I'm saying Rachel Sondokun into Okwebom State, Kuyo local government area. You can say my tangi konkangenero abasifon.
India Abdul Fattah Hassan daga Leddi Gombe wato Buba Yaro. Kala kon gidda pat inshallah Allah hokkete.
Tianwa take me Fidelis. Mba from Benue State, Goma local government. Yeah, on the card too. It means God is the greatest.
Banye uni semos nya Kaduna Baju me Wamzuga. Ni Chad Bayan Chadaya de Sham. Okay, it means in English that love one another and love is good.
Ahwambu Mwachi Alexander Ogochukwu. I'm for Imo State, Obo local government. Working akwa nelu akwa na akwa. What it means is that it's just like a parable. It means that somebody that is sewing is crying and sewing at the same time.
Tsunami Joseph Shemomo Amomi Bido. Okay, Begen Gichi Kyo Wano Zami Jisukun Ke Tunjino.
Thank you.
How are you? Have you eaten? How is work? How is the people at home?
Odumishi Opaluwa Ojoshide Deborah Omikwi Anegala Mbokumado State Kogi State le. Kuna ka ajo shikakini akanyakiti ifewo wa kokomade ni bomi ashila ajo ma ashila ma lek ma je kuma mo ma ashile kuma gboko ku bank ajo ko ade ti bank no go jeje kide doko wa ma le ajo pa kanyaki adane ajo mai.
Orúkọ mi ni Omidan Simsola Olabisi ọmọ Akíntáyọ̀, mo jẹ́ ọmọ ìlú Ọ̀yọ́. Sọ́pọ̀ ọ̀rọ̀ wọ̀ mí ní pẹ̀lú pangolo tó gbé dání tí ń bá gbọ́ àyàrí ó sì jà.
Orúkọ mi ni Ọlámídé Ògúnlékè Samuel. Ọmọ Ìbàràpá ni mí nípínlẹ̀ Ọ̀yọ́. Ọ̀tẹ́nẹ́ ọ̀sáré wọkọ́nẹ̀ ọ̀tún wá ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ ọ̀tún wá ẹ̀chẹ̀ mẹ́ta náà lọ́chẹ̀ ọ̀tẹ́nẹ́ ọ̀sáré wọkànà ọ̀tọ́ wá gbà yẹn kò máa dá bẹ́ẹ̀. That's Ìbàràpá for you. Ìbàràpá máa dá gẹ́mà ní Ìbàràpá jẹ́ kan lára àwọn èdè tó dáa jù nípínlẹ̀ Ọ̀yọ́ àti ní gbogbo ilẹ̀ Yorùbá. Kódà tó bá gbọ́ Ìbàràpá dáadáa gbogbo àwọn tí wọ́n gbọ́ Ìbàràpá ní pátápátá gbogbo wọn náà ni wọ́n máa mọ̀ wípé nǹkan tó dáa náà lèdè wa. Èdè wa ó wuyì lọ́pọ̀. Èdè wa sì rè kò sí nǹkan téèyàn ò lè fèdè wa ṣe, kódà lè fèdè wa ṣe òyìnbó.
Ọmọ Ondo Kúmìrà àmọ́ Iyemi ọmọ Kogi kọ láti apá Òkun Kúmìrà họ lóòrọ̀ yìí. Èdè Òkun jẹ́ èdè ilé ohùn wa lìkàlìkà. Àwọn ọmọ Òkun jẹ́ ọmọ ọ̀nì ilé ò jẹ́ pé ó nífẹ̀ẹ́ láti kó ọ̀ràn ní mọ́ra. Ó fẹ́ràn oko ọ̀hán fẹ́ràn iṣẹ́ líkàlìkà. Orúkọ mi kí Francis Ọlátúbọ̀sún Adéníyì. Ọ̀rọ̀ ilé gbogbo ọmọ Òkun nífẹ̀ẹ́ láti àhọ kí Òkun ọ̀bẹ̀fẹ́ túmọ̀ rẹ̀ Òkun ó dàbí ọ̀ràn ilé ìbò ọ̀bàyé well done ìtumọ̀ rẹ̀ kí òkun.
Aha m bụ Chukwuegbughe Bright. Awụ m nwa afọ Enugu State na-achị Mgbogu Kingdom. Agadi nwaanyị aha ka nka na-egwu ọmara agba.
Thank you so much. Glad to have you back once again, and I believe you enjoyed the report. So today we'll be discussing I think February 21st every year we use it to celebrate the International Mother Language Day, and that's the reason why Victoria has been laughing, because I guess she can't
because
speak
really actually I want to ask Chidinma, can you speak your language?
I can.
Oh, really?
Yes, I can speak my language. I can speak my language. And to be doing that with us today, we're going to be having this discussion, understanding why some languages are going into extinction, why people like Victoria cannot speak their language. Because now looking at it, we're going to be like, there's something that my mother used to ask me. She would be like, if you can't speak your language properly, what will you teach your children? At the end of the day, your children are having like a kind of confusion of where they're from. I think it's sweet. It's good to understand another language. We can do to our side. Just have a discussion that nobody can hear, like a code or something like that. So to be doing that discussion with us today, we have a journalist in the studio today in person of Evelyn Dan Epelle. You're welcome to the show.
Nice to see you. I told her she's looking African.
She's looking African, actually. How many languages can you speak?
Now, Igbo.
Yes.
I'm very.
I'm so happy to be. I'm so happy to be here today. Thank you so much, Chidinma and Victoria. This is my first Engendered appearance, and I hope that I get more of this. I'm such a huge fan of the show. I have to say, this is my go-to show for when I want to learn everything for the female folk. And I think that you all are doing a very good job.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to say that. I'm dressed like the flower today.
That's true. Thank you.
And I'm happy to hear you say African, because I try as much as possible to represent. And that's what a day like today is, the International Mother Tongue Day. Victoria needs to share why she was laughing, because I've been curious to know why she's been laughing. So maybe before I go on, Victoria needs
actually, why I was laughing was because I asked Chidinma for the topic, and she said it was mother tongue. I was like, okay, who is coming? Are we going to bring a herbalist?
She said we're bringing a doctor, maybe an issue with tongue or something. I really don't understand where your mind was.
Because I needed to know what.
Is it the election or something?
Don't mind.
I think I know where her mind was. Okay. The International Mother Tongue Day is pretty much a day that is set aside to sort of promote and preserve the different languages that we have in the different parts of the world. There are so many languages in the world. And, one of the things I always share with people is when you speak of the diversity that we have in Nigeria, it really comes down to the different languages that we speak, or the different languages that there are, because it's not all of us that speak our languages like, for those of us.
Well, I don't understand. If I don't speak, at least I hear. I can understand. I'm not lost.
What will you teach your children?
My sister. That's why it's actually diversity. We have different ethnic groups. It doesn't have to be like, oh, this tribe, this is where your father is. I don't know. Sure. Okay, that's why I was laughing.
Let's look at it from this angle now. You've tried to explain what the day is and what we've been celebrating. Now, what language do you speak?
That's a very good question. So I have to break it down for you to understand.
Oh, wow. I really want to hear.
Yes, and that just shows what the diversity I was talking about is. That, in Nigeria, we are so diverse that our diversity has even become our problem.
Okay.
And one thing that can lead us on the path of peace and prosperity ultimately would be to just recognize that diversity. I am a product of that diversity. Now, my father, who is the product of me, is from Opobo, Nkoro local government area of Rivers State. The people of Opobo, we identify as Ijaws. There's a lot of arguments. Some people will even tell you it's Ndoki and all of that. And the native language that we speak there has refused to be called Igbo. But fundamentally, when you speak Igbo in Opobo, it's pretty much sounds like Igbo, and an Igbo person, you know, it's just that there's a twist. Instead of saying Munagi, we say Ikem Nikegi.
Do you know what that means? Literally, Igbo, let me tell you.
At least we can speak our language.
It means, literally, for the Igbo people, Ikegi na Ikem means my bombo and your bombo.
Like, yes, and that's how we say it in Opobo for me and you and I.
Munagi is me and you.
Yes. Do you understand?
Okay.
And so it's interesting because now my mother is from Onitsha. My mother is from Onitsha, not from Umude village in Onitsha. And she's Igbo. So that's where I got my Igbo name, Uzamaka. And, you know, because this is engendered and, you know, we're talking about the female folk, when it comes to languages, I think that the mothers, especially here in Nigeria, tend to be the custodian of our languages, because ultimately the language that gets spoken to the kids and even sometimes the choice of their name always falls on the lap of the mother.
Okay, why is it like that? Because where you're going to now was coming there.
Okay.
So we had I heard there was a story that I read, and a child, I think she traveled out of the country and she came back. So you know what parents do sometimes, that they bring their children back to come and learn our culture and tradition. So the child couldn't speak her language. They took her to the east for the summer holiday, and the people in the society were like, your mother did not teach you. Why is the burden on the mothers? There are two people in this marriage, a man and a woman. So now all they could tell her was that your mother didn't teach you your language, that's why you don't know your language. So why is the burden more on the mothers?
Because we're a society of apportioning blame on others. Fundamentally, the education of any child is a community effort.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just about the mother or the father. You know, I would like to see spaces where we make efforts to teach language. The Igbo that I speak today, you know, I really want to say that the Igbo that I speak today, I learned it in school. I'm a product of the Unity colleges. I went to Federal Government Girls College here in Abuja. And in school, then, if I'm remembering this correctly, we had to take language classes. I think I still remember taking Yoruba, and I still remember taking Igbo. So I didn't take Hausa. That's why my Hausa is very poor, but at least I can count from 1 to 10 in Hausa. Yeah, and I think that that's fair. But I took those that I can speak a little Yoruba, but all of them are all proverbs. Okokoro tonje fonino efolowa. At least I can say proverbs. Okay, you know, and the Igbo that I learned came from, like, we read books. I still remember we read a book called Eriri Marangugu. Ngugu Amaronye Kereya. I don't know if you read that book, but we read books like that. We did a lot of poems and proverbs, guam guam guam, and all those things. Yeah. So those were, I learned to speak Igbo from having to read and write Igbo in secondary school, when I went secondary school, and also from the efforts of my mother's family, because my mother's family is larger, I would say larger than my father's family. My mom has about 9 other siblings, you know, so I had a lot of Igbo aunties, and they would always tease us and call us names in Igbo and communicate with us in Igbo. So that's as much Igbo as I was getting. And then when it came to my father's side, my dad really did well when it came to, you know, really harnessing the idea of culture and tradition in us. From when I was born up until I was like 13, my dad would make sure we go home, that's to Opobo, every Christmas, you know, for the Christmas and the New Year. You know, so that's kind of where I also picked up Ikem Nikegi.
But I really would want to ask though, why is mother tongue important? Why is it an issue that we always put into debates? Like, I've gone to a place where they asked me, what tribe do you speak? Do I have to speak a tribe? I'm speaking English.
It's important for us to recognize our diversity. I think that it can be a very beautiful thing and a very good way of forming bonds. I still remember a day that I was unexpectedly trapped at the Heathrow airport because we arrived late, and you know, I've never been there before. It was my first time. I didn't know my left from my right. And in the midst of all the chaos, someone picked up his phone and he said, "Nna man." And as soon as I heard "Nna man," I was like, okay, I feel good now, because I know that I am not alone inside this Heathrow airport, right? You know, so that's why, to me, I feel like it's important for us to recognize these aspects of community and the bonds that we can form from this. However, just like we always say, too much of everything is bad. When we get too extreme about our culture and you know, forming these bonds, that's when you start to see more violent types of tribalism, bigotry, and so on and so forth. But when we can just understand that there's a more holistic way to organize around different languages, use it as a tool to educate people. I've really, one of the most beautiful transformations that I've ever seen was a little, I don't know how to describe him now, if I would say he's my nephew, or no, he's not my nephew, because he's my mother's brother's child. I'm sorry.
Your cousin.
Is that
your
my
mother's
cousin?
brother's child?
Okay, Chidinma says cousin. I admit that I don't know what to call him, but he couldn't even speak English at all, you know, because he was born and raised in the East, so all he could speak was Igbo. And you know, he came to Abuja, and in a couple of months he was speaking very fluent English, you know. And then he returned back to the East, and during my last visit to the East, I realized that he has now even started teaching the other kids, not just in the house but in the environment, how to speak English. And most of them were trying to communicate in English, and instead of seeing me and speaking Igbo, they would want to show me that, oh, this little boy has taught me English, and they'll speak theirs. You know, so I think that language can be very beautiful when we look at the intersections, like how we use it as a tool for, say, education, just like in the case of the little guy, and how we use it also for even translation, you know.
But sorry to cut you now. At that point of translation, some people have the opinion that the language we speak affects the way we think. Because, like, for example, you said something like "ikigina ikim." In my own side, it means your bum bum and my bum bum. In your own side, it means another thing. I watched a video of a lady explaining that in a particular tribe or in a particular country, they don't say time the way we say time. They use like northwest, southwest. So she was asking a question in the hall, and she was like, if I ask you where the northwest is now, you might think before you point at a particular place. But for people from that community, they already know it's like that. So how true is it that the language we speak affects the way we think or the way we do things?
You know, it became even more apparent to me recently. A colleague of mine who is from the United States, but she's based in Kenya, and she speaks French, and we were having a conversation about writing white papers and researching and writing white papers. And she was like, she would want to look into writing the white papers in French as opposed to having to think of the concepts in French and produce the paper in English. You know, and I reached out to her and I said to her, what's the difference? And she explained to me that there's a huge difference, because now she has to think in French and she has to write in English. You know, so I have never really closely considered that and the ambiguity behind that, but I know that that exists. And what I can say to that is, that's also another tool and another avenue for learning. And I know we have the capacity to learn different languages here, because we see Nigerians leave Nigeria and go to countries like Germany and learn German and use that as a language to obtaining their degrees. But when you say, let's learn Hausa, Victoria can teach us Hausa, can't you? It seems a lot more difficult. And maybe that's because we're looking at foreign languages as exotic and looking at our local languages as local.
Yes, like we're not proud of it, that kind of stuff. Now, looking at the aspect of you mentioned tribalism and the likes, some people are like having different languages has done more harm than good to us, because some people say it brings a lot of sentiment. If you walk into an office today and once you speak your language, personally, from personal experience, if you notice that when you get into an office and you want to speak Igbo to an Igbo person, he replies you in English. But if it's for the Yoruba person, they reply in Yoruba. If it's for the Hausa, they can reply in Hausa. And from that minute, the people think that they begin to receive favor from those particular set of people. Some people then say, because he feels he's my brother, so I should do this for him and stuff. So there's a kind of sentiments attached to it and stuff. So some people are like, they would prefer if we had just one language. What do you think about that?
To add to what Chidinma said, it even goes down to the family, where, especially in Nigeria, you spoke about outside the country, where you go, you learn Jamaican, you can easily relate and interact with other people. They won't say, oh, it's because he's Jamaica, or he's this tribe or whatever. So in Nigeria here, you see an Igbo person say, oh, she's an Igbo lady, because she does not, it's even more helpful when you can even now speak Igbo. And that's, oh, she can learn, so, and our son can marry her since she can speak small. But when you are now like a different tribe entirely, and you do not even know how to speak the Igbo, now say, how will you communicate to our children? Is it not so sentimental and kind of downplay our interaction with other tribes?
I think I'll just say, what unifies what you both have said is that context is key.
Okay.
And one example that comes to mind was recently on the campaign trail. I don't want to call anybody's name here and bring in politics, but on this campaign trail, there was a little controversy that happened when a certain woman leader or so lady was speaking on a TV program, and the analyst was asking her if she understood what one of the presidential candidates had said in Yoruba. I don't know if you came across that story. And the lady's interpretation of what she thinks she heard and the actual Yoruba interpretation of the phrase that the presidential candidates used were different. But the lady had acted based on her interpretation of it. It's just like what she was saying about Ikem Nikegi. Someone who does not understand that Opobo version of Igbo might hear that and leave thinking that we were both talking about, you know, not knowing that we are just talking about ourselves. You know, so there's that. We must always understand that language can be learned and even unlearned. Do you know that after a while of not having the opportunity to do an Igbo exchange, it might be difficult for you to actually speak Igbo. If I spend the next 5 years permanently in Anambra State, living with my grandparents and my family there, I would speak even much better Igbo than I'm speaking right now. You know, so language is also a thing that you can be socialized to. You can learn Hausa by going to university in Yola, right? And by the time you graduate after 4 years, you would understand it. If you take me to Ghana right now and I land in Accra, you would not, I can make it through the airports as if I was Ghanaian. If you tell me Etiseng, I'll tell you, oh, yeah, and you know, because I spent 4 years schooling and studying in Ghana, so I have an appreciation for the tree. I can hear, and I can respond when you speak to me. You know, so I know that language can be learned, and even the way and rate at which I could hear and speak and respond in tree, as at 2015, has waned from how it is today, because I've been removed from that environment and I've gone to other parts of the world. But if I have, let's say, remained in Ghana since I graduated in 2015 till today, I'm sure by now I'll be speaking fluent Twi. So I think that eventually it's all about understanding. We must all just understand in the sentiments you shared about in the context of marriages. Any new wife can learn any language. It's a thing of interest if you're interested. And also, language can be a utility. So is it useful to you and maybe your spouse? Does you and your spouse, because I know there's some, I have had the opportunity to date men that are not of my tribe. And language has never really been a barrier in any relationship that I found myself in.
Maybe because it doesn't extend it to the family. let me go sweet families because of I'm so sorry because this actually used to be a problem. The family are not involved.
This is where we need to go on break so I can cry.
Okay. All right.
No, we actually wanted to go on a break. You need to go on a break so I can
Hard to cry. I don't know what Victoria just did. I don't know. All right, viewers, we're going on a short break now, and when we return, Engendered continues.
Oh my God.
Please, girls, let's be fast with our chores. It's almost time for Engendered. Girls, it's time for your favorite program, Engendered. Yeah, Mommy, we're coming right away. Sophia, turn off the gas. What are your fears as a woman? And what are your doubts as a lady? You think you're alone with those thoughts? Then welcome to Engendered, where we'll bring you discuss, interviews, previews, experiences, opinions on issues relating to the female gender. This is Engendered. Please, girls, let's be fast with our chores. It's almost time for Engendered. Girls, it's time for your favorite program, Engendered. Yeah, Mommy, we're coming right away. Sophia, turn off the gas. What are your fears as a woman? And what are your doubts as a lady? You think you're alone with those thoughts? Then welcome to Engendered, where we'll bring you discuss, interviews, previews, experiences, opinions on issues relating to the female gender. This is Engendered.
Well, welcome back. If you're just joining us, we've been discussing on a very important issue, which is, of course, the issue of mother tongue in our society. I don't know. They said it's fading away, and we've had our own guests talking about Evelyn, our journalist, joining us, or she has been with us discussing this topic, and we had to go on a break
because of what Victoria said.
So, but let's move on now. The issue of learning languages. Okay, I grew up in a family where my mom is an Edo, my father is an Edo, but yet
you can't speak your language.
Well, then I learned Hausa.
How did you learn Hausa?
I don't know, because my parents speak the same tribe in the same house.
No, you can know. So where did you pick it up from?
Okay, yes, I picked it from school.
You schooled in the north?
Yes, I schooled in the north. So
where did you school?
In a mixed school, both Muslim, that's Oxford Secondary School in northern area. We had the Muslim, and something actually forced. I had friends in my area then that spoke Hausa because I'm from the north. I was born and bred up there.
You were?
Yes.
Oh.
I was born there.
Where is there?
In Kaduna.
Okay.
Yes. So I had friends that would always want to speak to me in Hausa, but I couldn't learn. So it was true when I went to school, they were insulting me back, left, center, everywhere. So I was like, I have to learn this thing. So I started from insult and the rest. But yeah,
it's always from insult actually.
But yeah, I couldn't learn my own parents' language.
Did you have a community of Edo people in Kaduna?
No.
Because that's another way. And did your school have things? Because I know I joined the Yoruba cultural dance troupe. We used to do Onika, Liku, Jeje, Ewure. So that's one way to pick language too.
I did that. So my question would be, how easy can one learn language, or does it differ based on language? Can you learn a language easily because it's easy, or it's just your attentiveness towards that language or something?
I actually have that challenge because I grew up in Lagos. I can't speak Yoruba. Like, I understand, like she said, insults. If you speak some things, I understand, but I can't speak it. Are there some people that don't know how to use their tongue to speak some languages? Because I understand Igbo clearly, but when I speak, they laugh at me. There's nothing you want to say in Igbo. Bring it on the dialect.
No, I was telling you don't know how to speak the language.
No, I would understand clearly. I speak, but the way I speak is like I use my English, the way I speak English, to speak Igbo, and I need to use the accent to speak it. I went to school in Benin Republic. I didn't learn French. I just understand the basic, like come, go, stuff like that. But to get myself to speak it, I'm like, how will my tongue fold? How will it twist? Like, I really don't understand it. So is it possible that some people have that language barrier that they don't even know how to speak it?
And
they can't learn.
There's something I've heard that it's because it's the generational thing, this 21st generation, like we tend not to listen attentively. Like Chidinma said, not like I understand everything in my language, then I want to tell my mom, it's coming to my head, but I cannot
get your mouth to say it.
Sometimes I even join the language with Hausa together. She's the one that can understand.
So it comes down to language as utility. And you were talking about, is it that some people cannot learn the language? There are different incentives for you to learn anything. One of the things that helped me build empathy as a person was when I realized that even something like intelligence is not evenly spread. The way that the world is designed and the way that God created each and every one of us, we all have different degrees and varying levels of intelligence. But things like skills can be developed, and cultivated. Just like learning to fly a plane, there's every possibility in the world that all three of us can be pilots, professional pilots, and would fly planes. All it takes is one, all three of us interested in becoming pilots? Do we have any real incentive to want to learn how to fly a plane? Do we have the resources to get there, to achieve that ambition? When all these things align and come together, plus the passion, you wake up one morning and there will be pictures all over the place that, Chidinma, Evelyn and Victoria, renowned pilots, and that's how it is with language as well. The reason it's coming to your head and you're not bringing it out of your mouth can be a number of factors. The first can be that that's not your default language. And by default language, that's not the language you've been socialized to. See the way I'm speaking plenty English. My English has been morphed out of learning. I was born in Lagos. I went to private schools in Lagos. I went to a Montessori school, so things like phonetics were very important to us. I had Ghanaian teachers when I was in primary school, and from there I went to Federal Government Girls College here in Abuja. We had a fairly good English curriculum. I participated in a number of debates and essays and all those things. So all those things helped me form the English that, because that basic English, that's why education is also key. while we're teaching languages at that level, we can also look into our English curricula. For those people that want the universal language that cuts across, English can also help. And I finished from there, moved to Ghana. That's a different type of English, Ghanaians and Nigerians always diss themselves when you say come and things like that. And then to the US, where then you have to talk about phonetics as well, added to the English that you're speaking. So in the end, I've learned from all these journeys and from all these exposures that language is transient. Just think of language as water. If you want a cup of Hausa language, you can get yourself a nice cup of Hausa language by exposing yourself to the language, showing genuine interest. I've been saying that I wanted to take a French course. I've been saying that for more than 5 years now, but I haven't stepped into that cup of water where it's like, I want to learn this. Maybe because I haven't gotten enough incentive to want to learn French. If you offer me now a job here to be your French translator, and of course, I'm sure Victoria looks like I can want to use that as motivation to go learn to speak French and get exposed. I can go to Benin Republic as well, spend some time, socialize yourself to the language. So in the end, it comes down to understanding that we understand that we're a nation of diverse languages. We should see language as a means of connection and community and communication, as opposed to weaponizing language, as a tool for conspiring and, causing conflicts, and confusion.
Okay, you mentioned something about education, learning in different environments. Some people are of the school of thought that when a child learns in school with their mother tongue, they understand, they learn better, and they do better. How true can that be? In comparison to English, teaching them in English, that if you teach them, for example, if you go to the East, you teach them in Igbo, that they learn and do better rather than teaching them in English.
I realized that there are some things that when you say them in Igbo, if you try to say them in English, it would lose its meaning.
Exactly.
It's the same thing, even with Yoruba and other languages.
Exactly. It happens that way.
Pardon?
I said it happens like that.
Yes. And, it came to me from Proverbs. I think one of them was Petedoche. He did the outro of one of the Igbo songs. There's a song that they did recently, I think Fino.
Okay, with Fino, yes.
And he did the outro. And some people will always ask me, oh, what did Petedoche say? Can you translate that? And when you ask 5 different people, you get 5 different
answers,
answers to that, and it seems like it has lost its meaning. So I know that the language in which you're using to teach someone is very important. However, I would say that everybody goes in the direction of their strengths. If you've been socialized to Igbo language, like my little cousin brother, because he was socialized to Igbo language, that is why even when he was brought to Abuja, teaching him in English in the beginning was a very difficult problem until we got an Igbo teacher that used Igbo to teach him English.
Okay. Now you see, yeah.
You get it? Yeah. So at the end of the day, we have to identify these strengths. If you go into a community where the default language for assimilation is Kanuri, you need to get a Kanuri translator. Even if you want to slowly win that group of people to become English speakers, then you need to get a translator. And that's now opening room for job opportunities. People can even learn different languages. I've heard of people that can speak up to 8 different languages, and you can sell that as a tool in where teaching in languages become required or necessary. Even in some media houses these days, you have news being done in different languages. I think Engendered is done in a couple other languages.
Yeah,
yes, in Yoruba and Hausa.
Okay, so I want to ask this question now. We've had issue with people who get shamed, insulted for speaking their mother tongues. Like, I'll give an instance. You hear perhaps an Ondo or a Kitty man say something like "isu" instead of "issue," or say something like, I'll say this word, like an Edo man or a Benin man will say "breast" instead of "breast." Okay, so, and they are being laughed, they are being shamed. Should this go on? Because if I'm saying a particular thing in the way my parents or my ancestors would say it literally, should I be shamed for it?
No. And that's why it's difficult for us to learn languages. I still remember, even in school, secondary school, where I learned the little Igbo that I learned, when I had to take the Yoruba class, I still remember times where we were asked to read books in Yoruba, like short novels, and when it got to my turn and I get up and I try to read it, I always have a problem pronouncing O as O, you know, because, or O as O, you know, because
shola.
Because my default is the Igbo O, you know, or, you know, and then for Yoruba it then goes to O, you know, so that's always cause people to laugh at me. And you know, that discouraged me a lot, which is kind of why my Yoruba is as poor as it is. If my classmates were a lot more supportive, I hope they are watching. If they were a lot more supportive of me in that class, I most likely would be speaking much fluent Yoruba. So there is that too, shaming people. But I want to see more champions of the cause of the preservation and protection of our mother tongue and languages. So if someone tries to initiate a conversation with you in Igbo, the least you can do is try to respond in the little Igbo that you know. I do that a lot with people, because we're living in Abuja. Some people try to speak Hausa, particularly the traders. Whenever I go to buy something, they'll say, "Oh, now I you know, I realized that it meant, what do you want?" Or
how much?
Okay. And usually I'll just say that. I'll just say, "Oh, ba Hausa, kadang. I'll just say that, like, so that they can know that my Hausa is just, you see now, I've just been answering off points. Thank you so much. So, Nawane, why did I think that Nawane means? Okay, so teach me, how do I say, what do you want?
They are the one that would ask. Are you the one asking
how would I know they're asking me what do I want?
Mekina so.
Say that again.
Mekina so.
Mekina so.
Yes, you're gonna pay me for this.
Mekina so. Chidinma.
Yes, because they're female, but if it's a man, they will ask the man, Mekana so kasia.
Mekana so
Interesting.
kasia. Mekina so.
Okay, what other ways do you think we can actually maintain and preserve our culture? Because the rate at which we are going now, my siblings, they don't speak the language. Just sometimes you speak to them. My mom speaks to me in Igbo, I respond in English. Sometimes she calls me on the phone and she's like, "I want to tell you something important. Are you out?" I'm like, "I'm out. Can you speak your language?" And she's like, "Speak Igbo." And I'm like, on and out starts. It's not flowing. Like what I'm saying is not flowing. So I just stop at that point. So sometimes I think about it. My mom is like, sometimes she'll tell you, "Make sure you marry a man that can speak your language." And I'm like, okay, I can speak. It sounds funny in my head. That is just the problem.
Not just in your head, to everybody.
So now, how can we, Victoria, come on, how can we preserve our mother tongue? How can we maintain it? And because we already have, like, according to the report that we played, actually said about Nigeria has about 550 spoken languages. We already have about 8 of them that have gone into extinction. And if we're not careful, more and more of them will be going. There are some dialects, like when I did the Vox Pop yesterday, there was someone that was speaking an aspect of Oyo. He called it Ibarap or something. I did not know there was a Yoruba that sounded like that. So how can we preserve this particular mother tongue? And the second question I'll ask, because we're about to round up, is this: is language barrier enough to break a home?
Or a relationship?
So
Victoria is particular about this question.
A few minutes ago, Victoria pointed out to me that I've not had that experience. So I don't know if I'm qualified to speak on it. But for the near, Victoria, don't worry. The next time I'm coming on this show, I will make sure that my last name has transformed. You know, I don't think that language is enough to break a home, you know, because I've had cause to, very recently I attended the All Africa Youth Congress in Ghana, and we were placed in rooms with people from other African countries. My roommate is from Madagascar, and of course I'm from Nigeria. I speak English. We both did not understand a thing. Wow. But something powerful happened. The little that we could understand and the sign languages we were giving each other, we both decided that for the 5 nights that we were spending at that convention, that on each night we'll take turns to pray and say our night prayers before we sleep. And it was beautiful that she had a Bible written in Malagasy, which is the language of the people of Madagascar. And I had a Bible that's written in English. So when it's my turn to pray, I would read the word in English and I'll pray in English, and she would just be saying amen to anything that I say. And when it's her turn, she would read the Bible in Malagasy and pray in Malagasy, and I will say amen. But what happened was, at the end, like on the 3rd day, on the 4th day, I felt that I could understand what she was saying, because if she's reading Matthew 7:7 in Malagasy, I already know that what she's saying is asked and it shall be given unto you. I could at least understand, and I was happy to pick up those little words of the Malagasy language. And I could feel that bond. And so imagine that that's not even the type of bond Victoria is wishing for me, you know. But within that type of bond is still a form of relationship. And we were able to find a way to be intimate with one another, because prayer is an act of intimacy, if you ask me. And it was still powerful. I could still feel like after reading the word, we're both expected to pray for each other. And just like, I remember when she was praying for me in Malagasy, I was saying, me, I'm not hearing, but, but anyway, God still protects you. You know, and, you know, because I mean, I have that level of trust, but fundamentally, we had just met each other and all of that. And prayer is, someone is decreeing over your life for Christ's sake. But in the case of a relationship, I think that love conquers it all. That's where I was going to. Victoria made a very good point. And even if, yes, we had to go on a break to cry about it, she made a very brilliant point, because my thinking started and stopped where I felt that not being able to speak the mother tongue of my spouse mattered to the extent to which my spouse wanted me to speak it. That's where I was going, that okay, if my spouse, and they said two will become one, if my spouse does not mind, then it wouldn't be my priority. But Victoria was pointing out that when you get married to a person, it's not just the person that you're married to, you're now married to a family and a community. And then it will matter. You know, she talked about mother-in-laws. I hope my mother-in-law is not one of the types that would have to press your neck over learning language. But I think that where there is love, really anything can happen. And trying to teach people things by threatening them and trying to shake them up has never really worked, at least not for me. I don't learn anything by being threatened. I learn with love. You have to yeah, my father taught me math by telling me 2 apple plus 2 apple will say 4 apple, then you give me 1 apple.
So you have to be enjoying to learn.
Exactly.
So I want to ask this question maybe before we go. You talk about recognizing languages. So are there places where you should speak your language? Because for instance, there's this issue of speaking language in the office. You see people who speak language in the office tend to like you that you're not hearing that language, you feel like, oh, maybe then these people are actually doing something or saying something
about you
or something. Should that such matter or such traits be put in check, or we can just allow our languages fly wherever we are?
Language can cause, especially in an environment like ours, can cause people to feel isolated. It can cause people to feel neglected. If you're in an office where, let's say, you're sharing a space with 4 people and 3 of them are Yoruba. I'll even use myself for example. When I went to graduate school in the US, we used to have a whole community of Chinese students. And I still remember one of my very good friends, Xiaoman Chen. Xiaoman always made it a point of duty to be my translator because she would always sit next to me. And so when her friends come and all of them are speaking Chinese, like, what is going on? And I'll almost be confused. And Shama would tap me and be like, oh, they're saying that the professor said, and she would be literally explaining to me what they're saying. And so I would feel among, like, I can understand. She went as far as even trying to get me to sign up to one of their Chinese apps, the WeChat app, and with my friends formed a group, and she puts a translator for me, so when they write in Chinese I can see it in English. You know, if you don't have that, an ally who would always tell you, oh, they're not talking about you, this one just said his grandmother fell from the table and people were laughing, you know, for you to at least feel that sense of belonging, it can feel isolating. But one thing I know is that there are certain people who speaking their mother tongue comes to them very easily. They just slip into it easily, and it's not that they're talking about you. So there's that tendency where we always feel like we're being attacked. We tend, because you're outnumbered and because you don't understand. But when you look down into the conversations, oftentimes it's not about you. And I don't think too many people will spend that much time invested in just you.
Don't be too sure.
Yes, well, thanks for that. But yes, I don't want to think it's always about you. And if it is, that would be a sad situation to be in. But yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. It's been an interesting session with you. I think from this point, because personally I don't speak so well. The Igbo I started speaking that sounds good is because of a colleague, Daniel. Daniel speaks Igbo, so whenever
let's do a quick exercise. Can you say thank you to Daniel for teaching you Igbo?
Daniel
Igbo. You should say thank you, Daniel, for teaching me Igbo.
Hey, just hold on that one. Okay, so he speaks whenever when he speaks Igbo, he just speaks it normally like that, and I will reply in English. It's like, Chidinma, reply in Igbo, like, don't you like your language and stuff? So at that point, if he then speaks to me, I try to reply in my language, or even once I cite him, I just feel like I should just speak Igbo to him. But then when I insult him in Igbo, it's like, it's not because I helped you out. It's not because I taught you and stuff like that. So I think the little I know will help me out. At least I will pass it to my children. I'm very sure that my children will be able to speak more than I do. Yes. And Victoria too. I really don't know how we can help Victoria at this point.
Don't worry, I'm a Nigerian.
But at this point, I think it's very, very important for the people that think that it is a thing of shame not to speak their language. Actually, it is not. It's a thing of pride. It's a thing of honor. You can be able to identify this is where I'm from. If you can speak a lot of languages, kudos to you. Nice one. I wish I can actually learn languages. It actually helps the way you think, the way you see things. You can blend into any situation. We've heard of instances where people, because of language, because of the ability to speak another language, it has helped them out of situations. Personally, I think, like, if I get to the market and I speak to a Hausa person to purchase something, once you're able to speak their language, they give you discounts, mad discounts. I know that one for Hausa people. They give you mad discounts. So even the little I know how to speak, I just try to communicate with them. But what we should not do, like our guest already said, don't weaponize it. Don't start using it as a thing of segregation or start using it as a thing of, oh, I can speak, she can speak, let's gossip about her and stuff like that. Let's always use it to promote love amongst ourselves. And that's what we can take on today's episode of Engendered on KAFTAN TV. Do well to join us on Thursday by 5 p.m. where we'll be discussing another interesting issue.